Bobby Orr is one of the greatest hockey players the world has ever seen. He changed the game forever, winning 2 Stanley Cups, multiple Norris trophies, and earning a spot in the Hall of Fame while still in his 20s. Known for his speed, skill, and incredible vision on the ice, Orr seemed unstoppable. But even a legend like him didn't rise alone. Behind every record, every unforgettable goal, there were rivals who pushed him, teammates who lifted him, and idols who inspired him. As much as he dominated the game, Orr himself has said that the people he admired most shaped him just as much as any trophy or stat. From childhood heroes to fierce opponents, these figures helped make Bobby Orr the player and the man he became. Let's dive into the 7 players Bobby Orr loved the most. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Bobby Orr's story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more legends, rivalries, and untold stories coming your way. You won't want to miss them. Number 7, Bobby Hull, the rival who pushed him. Bobby Hull, known as the Golden Jet, was one of the fastest and most dangerous players in the NHL during Bobby Orr's era. With a shot that could explode past any goalie and a skating speed that left defenders struggling, Hull was a nightmare on the ice, and exactly the kind of rival Orr needed to reach his full potential. Their matchups were intense, often filled with high-speed chases up and down the rink, and every game felt like a personal test of skill, courage, and stamina. Orr has said that facing Hull pushed him to rethink the way he approached the game. Hull's speed forced Orr to develop quicker reflexes and sharper anticipation, while Hull's deadly shot taught Orr the importance of positioning and timing. Every time Hull was on the ice, Orr had to be 2 steps ahead, predicting moves, cutting off lanes, and finding ways to neutralize one of the league's most feared forwards. It wasn't just about stopping goals, it was about learning how to elevate his own game under pressure. Off the ice, their relationship was never particularly warm, but it was rooted in mutual respect. Hull knew that Orr wasn't just another defenseman. He was a revolutionary force who could change the game with one perfect pass or one lightning-fast rush. And Orr understood that Hull wasn't just a scorer. He was a competitor who demanded excellence from everyone he faced. Their rivalry wasn't fueled by personal dislike. It was fueled by a shared drive to dominate the sport they loved. Many of their matchups became lessons in speed, strategy, and mental toughness, shaping Orr into the player he would become. The takeaway from their rivalry is clear. Great players need great challengers. Bobby Hull didn't just compete against Orr, he forced him to raise his game, to think faster, and to embrace challenges as opportunities. The tension, speed, and brilliance of their battles left a lasting mark on Orr's career, proving that sometimes the fiercest rival can also be the most valuable teacher. Hull may not have been someone Orr loved in the personal sense, but he was undeniably one of the players who helped forge the legend. Without rivals like the Golden Jet, Orr's own speed, skill, and daring might never have reached the heights that made him a true icon of the game. Number 6, Ray Bourque, the modern successor. Ray Bourque entered the NHL about a decade after Bobby Orr had already revolutionized the game, but it didn't take long for Orr to notice the young defenseman's talent. Bourque had an elegant style that reminded many fans and players of Orr's own game. Blazing speed, incredible vision, and the ability to make offense out of the blue, while still handling the responsibilities of a top defenseman. Orr admired Bourque not because they were close friends, but because Bourque represented the next generation, carrying forward the standard Orr had set. Watching Bourque play, Orr saw someone who combined skill with consistency, a player who could dominate both ends of the ice without looking flashy. Bourque's dedication to practice, his leadership on the ice, and his quiet determination reminded Orr of his own approach when he was starting out. There was a sense of pride in seeing the game evolve in a way that honored the foundation Orr had built. Bourque became a benchmark for what a modern defenseman could achieve, and Orr often praised him in interviews, noting that his style and hockey sense were exactly the kind of traits that young players should aspire to. Even though their interaction was mostly indirect, through games, highlight reels, and professional observation, Orr's admiration was genuine. He appreciated how Bourque could carry the weight of expectations, lead a team like the Bruins for years, and still elevate the play of those around him. Orr understood that influence didn't always require friendship. Sometimes it existed quietly, in recognition of skill, commitment, and a shared love for the game. Bourque's presence in the league allowed Orr to see how his own legacy could inspire and shape the future of hockey long after his retirement. One of the most memorable connections between them came during special events and ceremonial moments. While they weren't teammates or close friends, there was a clear sense of respect whenever they crossed paths. Bourque understood the impact Orr had on the defenseman role, and Orr respected how Bourque carried that role forward, with his own style and personality. For Orr, seeing Bourque succeed was like seeing a living continuation of his own work on the ice. The takeaway is simple. Sometimes admiration isn't personal, it's professional, Rooted in respect for talent, dedication, and the way a player shapes the game, Ray Bourque may not have been someone Orr spent time with off the ice, but he represented the future of defense in hockey, the modern torchbearer of a style Orr had helped define. In Orr's eyes, Bourque's career proved that greatness could inspire even without a close personal bond. Number 5. Phil Goyette and Serge Savard. The ultimate test. Phil Goyette and Serge Savard were two of Bobby Orr's toughest challenges during his NHL career. Both players skated for the Montreal Canadiens, one of the most dominant teams of the era, and facing them on the ice was never easy. Orr respected their skill, speed, and intelligence, but their relationship was built on rivalry, not friendship. Every time he faced Goyette or Savard, it was a test of his skill, strategy, and mental toughness, a chance to see how far he could push himself. Phil Goyette was known for his quick thinking and ability to control the puck under pressure. Against him, Orr learned the value of patience and timing. Goyette could anticipate moves and force defenders into mistakes, which challenged Orr to stay alert at every second. Each game against him taught Orr to think faster, read the play better, and refine his passing and positioning. Goyette's intelligence on the ice forced Orr to adapt constantly, helping him grow as a defenseman who could dominate both offensively and defensively. Serge Savard, on the other hand, brought a physical and strategic edge. Known as one of the best defensive defensemen in hockey history, Savard could shut down top scorers with a mix of strength, positioning, and calm confidence. Orr had to match Savard's intensity and anticipate his moves in order to succeed. Every encounter with Savard was like a mental and physical chess match, pushing Orr to elevate his game beyond natural talent. While Orr didn't form a personal friendship with Goyette or Savard, there was undeniable mutual respect. They recognized each other's abilities and often acknowledged that the toughest opponents bring out the best in a player. The rivalry created a space for Orr to test his limits, learn new strategies, and gain the confidence to perform at an elite level under pressure. The takeaway from facing Goyette and Savard is clear. Challenges shape greatness. They weren't teammates, they weren't friends, but they were teachers in their own way. Every game, every battle, every moment spent facing these skilled rivals helped Orr sharpen his speed, creativity, and mental toughness. In the end, the ultimate test wasn't about scoring goals or winning trophies. It was about growing as a player and becoming the complete defenseman that would leave a lasting mark on hockey history. Facing Phil Goyette and Serge Savard showed Orr that true greatness isn't built in comfort, it's built in challenge. And through that rivalry, Orr became stronger, smarter, and more unstoppable than ever. Number 4. Jean Beliveau, the mentor of grace. When Bobby Orr thought about class and leadership in hockey, one name always came to mind, Jean Beliveau. Orr grew up watching Beliveau dominate with the Montreal Canadiens, and even when he became a star himself, the respect never faded. Beliveau wasn't just a player, he was the definition of grace on and off the ice. To Orr, he was less of a rival and more of a role model, a mentor in spirit if not in person. Jean Beliveau was the kind of player who could control the game without ever looking rushed. At 6'3", with smooth skating and pinpoint passing, he made everything look easy. Orr admired how Beliveau led his team to 10 Stanley Cups, not just by scoring goals, but by carrying himself with calm confidence. Beliveau didn't need to bark orders or throw his weight around. His presence alone demanded respect. For a young player like Orr, that was powerful, but it wasn't only Belivau's skill that left an impression. Orr noticed how Beliveau treated people. He was known for staying after games to sign autographs for kids, for shaking hands with arena staff, for never acting like he was bigger than the game. In a sport filled with intensity and rivalries, Beliveau carried himself with dignity. Orr respected that deeply. It taught him that greatness wasn't only about what you did on the ice, it was about who you were when the game was over. Even though Orr and Beliveau weren't teammates, their paths crossed often enough for Orr to see him up close. Whenever the Bruins faced the Canadiens, Orr could feel Belivau's poise. He wasn't just battling another forward. He was going up against a legend who made everyone around him better. Orr later admitted that he tried to bring that same sense of respect and humility into his own career, even at the height of his stardom. For Orr, Beliveau was the perfect example of how a player could inspire without direct mentorship. Just by watching him, Orr learned lessons about leadership, class, and professionalism that stuck with him long after his playing days ended. Beliveau showed that it was possible to be both a fierce competitor and a gentleman, a balance that Orr carried into his own life. In Bobby Orr's eyes, Jean Beliveau wasn't just a rival, he was a silent mentor, a model of grace who shaped the way Orr thought about hockey and life. We're only halfway through and the names keep getting bigger. If you're enjoying these stories about the legends who shaped Bobby Orr, take a second to like this video and subscribe. It really helps us keep bringing you more of hockey's greatest stories. Number 3. Ken Dryden, the wingman in defense. When Bobby Orr joined Team Canada for the 1972 Summit Series, he found himself surrounded by some of the best players the country had ever produced. Among them was Ken Dryden, the towering goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens. Orr and Dryden were never NHL teammates. One was the star of the Bruins, and the other was the backbone of the Canadiens. But in international play, they stood on the same side. That experience built a bond of trust between them, one rooted in respect and shared responsibility. Dryden was unlike most goalies. At 6'4", he filled the net in a way that few had before. But what impressed Orr wasn't just his size, it was his calm. Dryden never looked rattled, even in the tensest moments. For Orr, who played a high-speed attacking style, knowing Dryden was behind him gave a sense of freedom. He could take chances, jump into the rush, and still trust that if something went wrong, Dryden would be there to cover. The Summit Series itself was a test of nerves and character. Canada faced the Soviet Union in games that felt bigger than hockey. For Orr, who was dealing with injuries at the time, watching Dryden hold steady under enormous pressure was unforgettable. Dryden's composure in net was a reminder of how important trust and teamwork were when the stakes were highest. It wasn't about personal rivalry anymore. It was about wearing the same sweater, standing for the same country, and leaning on one another. Off the ice, Dryden and Orr shared mutual admiration. Dryden later wrote about how much he respected Orr's creativity and courage, calling him a player who redefined what defensemen could do. Orr, in turn, admired Dryden's intelligence and perspective on the game. Dryden wasn't just a goalie, he was a thinker, someone who studied hockey deeply and understood its bigger picture. That made their connection more meaningful, because both men valued more than just wins. They valued what the game represented. Though their time as teammates was brief, the respect they built lasted long after. Dryden went on to have a Hall of Fame career, winning multiple cups with Montreal, while Orr's career was cut short by injuries. Yet in those moments they shared on Team Canada, there was a true sense of partnership. For Orr, Dryden was more than a rival turned ally. He was a wingman in defense, someone who made him feel stronger just by being there. To Bobby Orr, Ken Dryden represented the power of trust. In a game built on speed and pressure, knowing you had someone reliable at your back made all the difference. Number 2. Gordie Howe, the childhood idol. For Bobby Orr, the dream of becoming a hockey player started long before he ever skated onto NHL ice. Like many Canadian kids of his era, he looked up to one man above all others, Gordie Howe. Known simply as Mr. Hockey, Howe was the living example of everything a young player wanted to be. Tough, skilled, and able to dominate the game in every way. To Orr, watching Howe was like watching the blueprint for greatness. Howe wasn't just a scorer, he was the complete package. He could outmuscle you in the corners, dazzle you with his hands, and even drop the gloves if the moment called for it. The Gordie Howe hat trick, a goal, an assist, and a fight in the same game was proof of that balance. Growing up, Orr admired how Howe never seemed to back down. He wasn't flashy for the sake of being flashy. He played hard, played fair, and always put his team first. By the time Orr entered the league in the mid-1960s, Howe was already a legend with decades of hockey behind him. The age gap meant they weren't true rivals, but for Orr, just being on the same ice as Howe was surreal. Imagine being a kid who grew up hearing stories about Mr. Hockey, then suddenly lining up across from him in an NHL game. Orr often said it was both intimidating and inspiring. What impressed Orr most was Howe's longevity. While most players burned out or slowed down after a decade, Howe kept playing at a high level into his 40s and even returned for a season in his 50s. To Orr, that kind of endurance showed unmatched dedication. It wasn't just talent, it was love for the game. Plain and simple. That passion was something Orr carried into his own career, even when injuries cut it short. Even though their relationship was mostly from a distance, there was mutual respect. Howe acknowledged Orr's brilliance, often praising him as a player who changed hockey forever. For Orr, hearing that from his childhood hero was one of the greatest compliments he could ever receive. In Bobby Orr's story, Gordie Howe wasn't a teammate or a close friend. He was the spark, the figure who lit the fire in a young boy's imagination, and showed him what was possible with skates, a stick, and determination. To Orr, Gordie Howe wasn't just Mr. Hockey. He was the idol who made the dream feel real. Number 1, Phil Esposito, the teammate who completed him. If there was one player Bobby Orr trusted more than anyone, it was Phil Esposito. The two were not just teammates on the Boston Bruins, they were partners in every sense of the word. Orr could dominate a game on his own, but with Esposito by his side, his brilliance turned into dynasty-level success. Together, they built a bond that defined an era of Bruins hockey and made each other better every single night. Esposito was a pure goal scorer, one of the greatest the NHL had ever seen. He had a nose for the net, always finding the right spot at the right time. For a defenseman like Orr, who loved to rush the puck and create plays, having Esposito up front was perfect. Orr could carry the puck end to end, draw defenders to him, and then dish it off to Esposito. who almost always finished the job. Their chemistry was instant and unstoppable. But what made their connection special wasn't just the goals, it was the friendship. Orr and Esposito respected each other deeply, and that trust showed on the ice. Orr often said that Esposito made his life easier, because he knew that if he took risks, Esposito would be there to turn them into rewards. In turn, Esposito praised Orr as the greatest player he had ever seen, often crediting him for giving him the space and freedom to score at will. The results spoke for themselves. With Orr setting the pace from the blue line and Esposito leading the charge up front, the Bruins became a powerhouse in the early 1970s. They won 2 Stanley Cups together, and Esposito set scoring records that stood for years. Fans remember Orr's flying goal in 1970, but they also remember how often Esposito was right there, crashing the net, creating chaos, and capitalizing on Orr's brilliance. Off the ice, their bond remained strong. They laughed together, battled side by side, and shared the pressures of being superstars in a hockey-mad city. Even after their playing days ended, Orr often spoke warmly of Esposito, calling him not just a teammate, but a true friend. In many ways, Esposito was the final piece of the puzzle. Orr had the talent, the vision, and the drive, but with Esposito, he had the perfect partner to turn potential into championships. To Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito wasn't just another great player. He was the teammate who completed him. Bobby Orr's story isn't just about the goals he scored or the trophies he won. It's about the people who stood around him, the idols he admired, the rivals who tested him, the mentors who guided him, and the teammates who lifted him higher. From Gordie Howe sparking his childhood dream, to John Beliveau showing him grace, to Ken Dryden earning his trust, and Phil Esposito becoming his perfect partner, Orr's greatness was never built alone. Each of these 7 figures left their mark, shaping the player and the man he became. In the end, Bobby Orr reminds us that even legends are forged by those around them. Greatness recognizes greatness, and legends create legends. If this journey through Bobby Orr's heroes moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Together, we're keeping the greatest stories in hockey alive.